Community Beacon, Fridays at 6:30 EST, with your hosts Michael Seville and Joel Simmons. A channel whose focus is liberty. A place where the lessons discussed and taught will create openings to a more open and freer mindset. A mindset where you may reach the height of your potential and excel. Here are your hosts, Mike and Joel.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. How you doing there, brother?
I'm doing wonderful, brother. How was your week, man?
This week was productive. It was amazing. It was good. It was fantastic. It was a blessing. It was, did I say productive? It was successful.
Yeah, good and productive and good and great.
Yeah, that's right. That is right. You got it. You got it. How about you? What's going on with you, brother?
Likewise, just getting into it. We're in the second week of the year, officially second week, 14 days in, 2 full calendar weeks. And starting on this Friday, that's an interesting thought, how it started on that Friday. So it ends exactly on that business week for most businesses. And it's been interesting. It's been interesting so far. It actually doesn't really feel like the beginning of the year. Here's a question I got to those who are watching, whether you're watching now live, for you all, shouts out to you all. Shouts out to people who catch us on the replay. Did you give up on your New Year's resolution yet? Did you give up on it yet? I hope not. If the gym is any indicator, it never started. Normally at the beginning of the year, the gym is jam-packed with people. And this year, it's not that way. This year, it seemed like the same people who were going last year are going this year. So that was interesting to me. Other than that, people, let's get into this housekeeping real quick.
Get it.
Hey, listen, we appreciate you guys for checking in each and every week with us as we prepare this show. Before the guy with the bow tie gets upset, I need you to like, share, and subscribe. Like, share, and subscribe. Every week we get on and we are giving you value. This week will be no letdown as we go further into the legacy talk. So please like, share, and subscribe with us. And if you have any questions, please, and engage. That's the ultimate thing. Engage. If we don't speak with you today, we'll speak with you later if you leave a comment. I think that about clears it up. What do you think?
Let me get a couple more things out there. Listen, you all, in case we don't remember at the end of the show, please remember, Monday nights with Mike, 9:00. All right. That's streaming live on Facebook. It'll also be streaming on YouTube as well as LinkedIn. All right. So please remember that. Monday nights with Mike. Also, we have on Wednesdays, It Starts With Me. All right. It starts with me. So you want to be there for that piece as well. That's at 12:30 Eastern. All right. It Starts With Me. Remember us back here at Community Beacon every Friday night at 6:30. Y'all remember to tap on in, be a part of this. And please subscribe to Mike's channel on YouTube. Subscribe to my channels. Come on, give us some love. We love doing this. We love to see you all. It's very important. It helps us to move this thing forward. So, legacy, y'all. Legacy, it's the season that we're discussing. This is our second season, Mike, by the way. Second week of the second season. And we're glad to be here. Here. It's like show number 19.
Lots of twos, man. Lots of twos as we get into legacy. If you all didn't check out the show that we had last week as we dove into legacy, it was an awesome show. Lots of excellent ideas. Shouts out to everyone who was engaged with us last week. And we spoke about, us moving our legacy forward, what it means to us, some ways to continue a legacy and etc. So I appreciate that. And without further ado, I think last week we actually, and I don't know if we have it up here now, we actually defined legacy. Let me see if I can pull it up.
Yeah, that'd be good. So,
Yeah.
so tonight, you all, while he's getting that together, we want to know, we want to hear from you. So, if you're on this broadcast somewhere, if you're watching, then we want to hear from you. We want to know what does legacy mean to you? What does it mean to you? Maybe Anna can put that up there. Put it on the scrolling marquee, though. Put it on the scrolling marquee. What does legacy mean to you? And let's scroll that out there. Anna's in the background. We thank God for Anna in the background. She's like the producer. She make sure things happen. So hopefully she can get that on the scrolling marquee. And we're gonna throw that up every once in a while because we want you to put that inside of the comments. We want to hear that. So she got it on the ticker, y'all. What does legacy mean to you? All right. Mike's got it. Mike got it. Let's go ahead. Let's hit it, y'all. Let's hit it. What's going on, Mike?
Perfect. All right. Listen, Anna's jump. While I'm looking forward and getting ready to put it into it, Anna's already ahead of it. Once again, much appreciation and gratitude to Anna as she handles her duties back so well and so swiftly. All right, let's get into it. The first question that we have is, what are the traditions you were raised with? What are some of the traditions you were raised with? Brother, go ahead and start it off.
Yeah, let me set this up for y'all, right? So when we started to discuss this legacy, Mike and I kind of divided it up into 3 different categories. And I think in order to go into this question and for it to stay in that cycle, we need to hit up the Venn diagram that Mike suggested and Anna created for us. These are the 3 things that we wanted to really talk about. All right, the larger pieces of this Venn diagram: ideology, reputation, and character, and then tangible assets as being something that you can leave, for those, not just for your children, but for the world to take part in. And so between your reputation and your character and ideology, there's this line of like tradition, right? Tradition and wisdom. These are types of things that you leave, and so what is that? Out there, what kind of traditions do you leave? Yeah, we were talking about this last week, right, Mike? Mm-hmm. And some, like, I've got a tradition. I started thinking about it. Mike asked me, it's like, yo, what do you do? So I remember this. I remember that it was the best thing to wake up on Christmas morning. It was the best thing to wake up on Christmas morning. And when we woke up on Christmas morning, then, everybody, I would always be the first one to wake. Hey, waking up, Mom. Get up, Mom. Get up. And I didn't realize that they had just went to bed 2 hours before I got up. I don't know if there's anyone out there, some of y'all that are around my age or whatnot, they went to bed at 4:00 because they had to put together all of the toys that they had bought me, and they had to wait till I went to sleep. And I was so excited, I'd be in the bed, but I probably didn't fall asleep till 2:00 in the morning. So they had to wait and bring all those toys and things. I hope I'm not spoiling this for some child that's watching over their parents' back, but they had to bring everything from their closet and put it underneath the Christmas tree. And not only that, but they couldn't make a sound. It's like, boom. And then I grew up and I had kids and I found myself doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. That was a huge tradition for us, putting up the Christmas tree, the lights, and waking up early in the morning. That was a tradition. It became a tradition that my family did and that I still carry on today. So that's my one tradition I'm leaving right now. I don't know. I might have another one. What about you, man?
Christmas was huge for us as well. My mother was big into Christmas. So the same thing, we were going to sleep. We tried to stay up as long as we could. And as you know, and as you all should know, my birthday is the day before Christmas. So one of the Christmas was I was able to open one present as it being my birthday, to celebrate my birthday. I had siblings, so they would complain, and they eventually got to open up one present, which I didn't necessarily think was fair. it wasn't their birthday. But the same thing, waking up. I remember my mother was huge on making what in Jamaica it's like a black cake. It's a fruit cake. It has all these these fruits that are soaked in red wine, etc. And it all goes into this cake. And I mean, I kid you not, she would make like 15 to 20 of those cakes like the night before Christmas. And then that's what she would give out to family and friends the following day. Delicious. Which was interesting because my cousin, I was like, well, where's the fruit cake? My mother's passed. So I said, where's the fruit cake? And my cousin said, you know what, I'm going to make you one. And she made one as well. And I mean, it was awesome the way that, that she put it together. And then, of course, the waking up in the morning, because there were never presents underneath the tree. There might have been like 3. You see 3 presents underneath the tree. And then Christmas morning, it would just the whole, and you're like, where did they keep like where was she hiding these presents? It was crazy, but she always made Christmas an excellent affair. Loved it. Another thing that my mother did was on Sundays, it was Christmas dinner. So that's one of the things I want. Christmas dinner. It's dinner, traditional Sunday dinner. She's making a bunch. If she made enough that if people came through, they could have it as well. It was this process of being abundant. And if nobody came through, guess what? You'd be eating it throughout the week. But it was there. Every Sunday, you knew you can go to my mother's house and have dinner. So that, those are some of the traditions that were passed down with us, along with, and it's interesting, especially in our community, not because we had this conversation and it seems like we both had similar experiences, is that it was a lot of these things were passed down maternally. And when you and it's probably throughout the world, because what we know is that mothers tend to be the first teachers of the children. So it's very, very important. It's very, very important for us to pay attention to the women that we're with, because they're the ones that are really instructing initially and teaching us as children and babies about a lot of these different traditions. It's passed through the mother. So I thought that was awesome that we both shared that same experience. And I'm sure a lot of our people who are watching now probably have similar experiences with their mothers and Christmas and passing down those traditions.
That's interesting that you said that. Yeah, when you said that, it made me think about Samuel. When I think about Samuel, I think, his mom went and started to pray that she could have a child. She was barren for a long time, and it was very depressing, especially in, what we consider to be the biblical days, in the time of the kings. And she went before Eli, and Eli thought she was a drunk woman because she must have been like really praying, brother. I mean, she was really praying, because he thought she was drunk. He was like, you know what time of morning it is right now? You shouldn't be drunk out here. She was like, please forgive your handmaiden. No, it's just that I am very sorrowful, And he was like,
oh. Do the Eli voice again. What was Eli?
I don't even know that.
That'd be a great Bible narration. That the Eli voice.
Was it a good one? How dare you? You've gotten yourself drunk. There's no reason to do such a thing like this in such a holy occasion, And she was like, no, please. I'm so sorry. Forgive your handmaiden. And as she began to speak to him, he was like, oh, okay. All right. Well, I tell you what, then I'm going to leave you with the blessing instead, because you're such a faithful person. And she ended up going home and having a child named Samuel. Who became the next prophet, right? But the thing is that when her husband, who loved her dearly, came by and said, hey, we're going up for the service, the yearly service, she said to her, no, I'm not going. She said, I promised that I would bring the child, and when I brought the child, I would leave the child. So he will not leave my side until he is weaned. And I just thought that was the piece that reminded me of what you said, is that she kept the child home, and she made sure that he was properly taken care of, and that he learned the basic fundamentals of how to serve God, how to take care of himself, and that he was healthy enough that the priest wouldn't have to take care of a baby. And so when Samuel got to the priesthood, he was prepared to stay forever. And I think that that's a powerful statement that, considering how the matriarch of the family can leave that type of impression on children. Yeah. So just remember that out there, mothers and fathers, what we leave, what we say can be left, and what is left can be used to grow.
I love that. And we have to remember, and I think Anna and us, we were talking yesterday during the pre-show, and she mentioned the stories that she had in regards to her and her mother, and even now to this day. And she was talking about something when she was younger, a lot younger, and she remembers the stories. We have to remember that a lot of the legacies and traditions, it was the book. She was talking about a book, the storybook. A lot of legacies and traditions are passed through stories. That's originally how things were passed down, and then eventually we got the printing press, and then we were actually writing these things down. But originally things were passed down through stories. And when you pass things down through stories, then that's why the Bible and a lot of the stories in the Bible resonate so much, is that there's always there are the little clues and little lessons that you learn from these stories that are being taught. And of course, that's that bedtime story that your mother read to you, or even the prayer. What did my mother used to say? Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. If I should die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. Yeah, so it's just, this is these bedtime stories. And songs is another instrumental way of passing down traditions and legacies. And I don't want to get too far off the tangent, but just we get into these conversations, brother, and it strikes up these different thoughts.
Listen to this, right? Book of Proverbs, the 6th chapter, 20, 21, 22. My son, keep thy father's commandment, and forsake not the law of thy mother. Bind them continually upon thine heart, and tie them about thy neck. When thou goest, it shall lead thee. When thou sleepest, it shall keep thee. And when thou awakest, it shall talk with thee. And even more, for the commandment is a lamp, and the law is a light, and reproofs of instruction are the way of life. That's powerful, right?
I just got chills while you read it. I'm getting chills while you read that verse, brother. What did it say? Keep the commandments of your father. Is that what is
keep thy father's commandments, and forsake not the law of your mother. Yep.
I want to just delve into why it's so important. I'm glad that we're doing this show and this episode, especially when we're talking about, because for most of us in our community, we have the mothers are there. The mothers are there. They have been there, and they've been keeping up, and they've been the first teachers as it has been. And for whatever reason, as the narrative is, I don't know how necessarily true it's not, because we got two brothers here that are in the lives of their children and want to be in the lives of their children. But it's so important that one part in regards to keeping the commandments of the fathers. Fathers, this is why you are so important to be in your child's lives. Fathers are supposed to be the disciplinarians. Fathers are the ones who keep up the rules or have these rules, etc., that keep these things, that keep children in line. And that way, when they grow up and they start their own family or they go their own way, these commandments and these laws are already embedded. They're embedded. Most people live every day by embedded commands. We don't even know. So consciously, we are in this loop. It's so hard to make a change, even if it's for the better, because you're already embedded. By the time you're 7 years old, you already have your programming. Most people operate off of the programming, how we are already programmed, and we do it daily. It has to take this very, very conscious decision to say, okay, we need to change the programming. That's why we start talking about generational curses or blessings, because you're just operating in the way that you were brought up and grown. We're operating as a 7-year-old does. Some of these things serve us, especially if you're being brought up and taught in the right ways. Some of these things don't serve us, because some of these things were absent from our lives. So it's very, very important that we pay attention to these different things. And it's very, very important that, because you need both.
Yeah.
Would you say the commandments is the lamp?
Yeah.
And
the
commandment
is the lamp, and the law is light.
And the law is given originally in the first part of that verse. Who was the law?
The law, it comes out of the mother.
Do you see how it came back out in the end? So you need the lamp, which is the structure.
Yes.
And then you need the light that's going to shine. And that's that give and take. You know what I mean? That's that synergy that's created, the lamp and the light. Oh my God.
Yeah.
We're about to have Bible study in a second.
Yeah. No, that's powerful, man. That's powerful. And it also shows you the prominence of a mother and father that are walking together.
Yeah.
You know, fathers, you got to get out there. You have to teach. You got to teach your sons how to protect. You got to teach your daughters how to defend. Man, I love when I've read the story about Moses' wife. That was a bad lady. I mean, that lady was the real deal. I guess she had to be with Moses, But I mean, she would lead the cattle, she even cut the foreskins off of all the children and Moses when God was like, listen, this is going to be a token. That was her with the rock. She looked at Moses like, you a bloody husband. She was upset about that. Like, you a bloody husband. I'm going to do this, but I just want you to know, this ain't what I signed up for.
Listen,
you said it right though. The structure, fathers being that structure, you got to hold up that light, and then the mothers, be the light. Be the light. I would always say, if I give the law, I'm really hoping that my wife will teach my children to uphold it. Yeah. Because it just happened to be in our structure, in our life, at our home, that I would go out and I would, she would work too. But then there came a time when my wife wasn't working, and she would take care of all of our children. She would take care of the house. She would take care of the bills, and she would create these other little funds and streams of income. And it was very impressive how she kept herself. Her value. You always talk about showing your value. I mean, wow, she made more money than me, and she didn't get a paycheck for it. Poor thing, but her value was impressive. But all I could do was just leave that structure, and then my wife, she would shine on the children, and whether or not they would abide within that structure, it was heavily dependent upon her, shining. So I think that was a perfect way that you put that,
Yeah. And I think, and I guess we'll leave it here, is that from the other side, when the parents aren't together, we have to remember, and I know there's a lot of emotion involved. There's a lot of turmoil. There's a lot of things, because it may not necessarily have went the way that you wanted it to go. Remember that you guys aren't enemies. You aren't, especially in the rearing of a child. It's about bringing up the child, and maybe one is maybe lacking in it. Maybe both of you guys are lacking in it. If you go back, and I'm speaking to the fellas now, fellas, just go and think about what it is. You just got to do what you got to do. You got to do what you got to do. So just you got to eat it as well. take responsibility and just and do what's in the best interest of the child, even if emotionally it bothers and it triggers you. You know,
Yep. Man, that
go ahead.
Mike, like that's powerful, man. That's powerful because I mean we have to everybody. It's a wake up call to everybody. We talking about legacy. You want that? Do you know? Papa was a Rolling Stone. Where he laid his hat was, So I mean, that's not what we want to be. That's not what I want to be my legacy.
Right.
That wherever I roam, wherever I lay my hat, that was now my home. I don't want that to be my legacy. And the statistics, they should not define us. And right now we're living in a day and age where, especially, I'm going to talk about the black man. The black man right now, we're living in a day and age where this is your time to shine. I mean, everything has been, the pathway has been burned. It's been forged. It's ready for you to walk in and to shine. There is an acceptance for you at the table right now, So we got to get it together. We have to keep it together, and we got to go out there and do something with it.
Let's get it. Let's get it. Awesome. Listen, I'm sorry, people. We're going to talk about it. And don't get it wrong. None of us are perfect in our ways. We're steadily learning. We're steadily growing. But when you become aware of it, it's time to make that change and make that difference. And don't get me wrong. I see a lot of you guys out here doing some excellent stuff, man. I'm walking around. I was out at the outlet mall. I've seen a lot of fathers with their children, with their families, taking care of business. I wasn't the only one that had the little baby packet. I had my son in my little my baby packet. And I seen another brother out there, and we looked at each other and we just shook hands. We knew we enjoyed it. Okay, excellent. Let's get into it. What traditions are you going to implement? We named a couple that we had that we grew up with, and now we're going to name a couple of traditions that you're going to implement. I can start off with that. I want to say probably one of the biggest things that I'd like to implement. Well, two things actually, but one of the biggest things is financial literacy. There's so much in the past 2 years, that I have had to learn. I've had to learn it quickly. In the past 10 years, even more. And I'm hitting 40. I'm headed around the bend to hit 40. And so in the past 10 years,
welcome to the other side.
I'm almost there, brother. I'm almost there, God willing. One of the things that I was looking at, and we spoke about it last week, was the life insurance and leaving something. I saw the way that my mother did it. There were no fish fries. There were no passing of the hat. This lady knew exactly what she was doing, and she was sacrificing while she was alive to make sure that it happened, even though it was it came out of nowhere. But when it was time, you can't say nothing. There was no bag that was left with people holding the bag. We have to stop leaving our kids burdened with debt. We can't let them be stressing out about having to bury each other. So it's huge, the financial literacy, having that. I'm not even going into depth with the financial literacy, but just that alone of not leaving your family worried about how they're going to bury you or going into debt by burying you when insurance is so cheap. It's a couple Starbucks if you do Starbucks. It's McDonald's if you do McDonald's. If you do some other things, it's a couple of those too. So just make sure that you're paying attention and do it now, because the younger you are when you do it, the cheaper it is. And we never know when that time comes. So that's definitely that. That's one of the traditions. The second tradition is men being there for their children. Now, this does not say that you're not working, because I'm probably one of the hardest working brothers I know. And I was there for the last 10, 11 years as the brother on the other side of the screen. This brother had like 18 jobs at one point in time as we were doing something that was very, very strenuous, along with probably everything else that he had going on in his life. This brother would show up, and he not only would he show up, but he would show out while he had all those other jobs, and he was there for his children, and they can attest to that. Because I don't have to talk to him, because it coming out of my mouth, it coming out of his mouth is just like it coming out of my mouth. I can praise myself as much as the next person, but when your children are praising you, or when you can see it in the children that they know who their father is, and they respect their father for being there, that's a whole different thing. And I'm not talking about taking pictures on Father's Day every other week. No, you're there for your child as much as you possibly can be. And if there's a blockage there, you're still fighting in order to be in the life of your child. Because you can't, there's two things. You can have excuses or you can have results. You can't have both. And these children are going to remember. They're going to turn 18, 19, 20, and there's not much you can do at that point in time. There's not much conversation that you can have. It's a tough thing for a child to grow up and feel as if their mother is suffering, or feel as if they're going without because the father's not there. So because mine wasn't there in that aspect of it, I'm taking it upon myself to be there. And at the same time, fellas, we have to not be overzealous in our pursuit of it, because you can do that as well and anger people and make it an angry place. So let's not be overzealous. Let's try to practice balance with that. And don't forget, you're still here to protect and provide and lead, regardless of, in any capacity that you can. If you can't lead by, I want to say telling somebody, but guiding somebody with your words, maybe you do it with your testimony, because regardless of what people may not listen to you, but they're watching you. So so you can be a leader by just your simple testimony and guidance. You can do that by your testimony. You can guide by your testimony. I can watch Joel and he may not necessarily know that I'm watching, but I'm like, okay, this brother, I like the way what this brother's doing, and I'm going to start doing it. And believe you me, I went out on Sunday. I had lunch with a guy from the gym, and people are watching you. His wife was there. She's like, oh yeah, you're the guy. I met his wife, and he was like, I remember you. You're the guy that always is doing the lunges, and you're going back and forth, and you have it's just, and I don't recall seeing her. I never had a conversation with her. I don't recall seeing her. And she was telling me about what it was that I was doing at the gym and how hard it was that I worked while I was there. So it's important that if you can't guide by actually, instruction. I can't say do this, do this, do this. Do it by your testimony, because they are watching. Okay, I'm done. Go ahead, brother.
No, I like it. I think I want to add this back, because I heard a few things, and character, y'all. Character, strong character develops reputation. Strong character develops reputation.
Yeah.
You begin to be known for your character, and the stronger your character is, and that's pro or con, good or bad, the stronger it is, you'll gain fame or you'll gain infamy, but you'll gain one of them. People will remember you. And, and talking about legacy, that's like part of it, right? The person that saw Mike doing them lunges remembers Mike because of what he was doing, the repetition that they saw. And that develops this thought process of, this is the type of man that Mike is, So we mindscape as human beings. We mindscape. It's how we remember things. We connect pieces to other pieces. What I mean by that is, I may not always be able to remember directly a recipe or remember, a number of some sort. However, if I show up and there's something that is cooked that is so delicious and I'm like, what was it that you put in there? And someone tells me it, I remember the taste of it. And because of that, I uncannily remember the recipe, because it means something to me. So people remember what means something to them. When it has a great effect, it will cause a lasting effect. And that's what I hear coming out of Mike, and that's what that's part of what I want to leave as well, because when that was the gospel truth, as we call that, Mike, because I mean, I don't know if everybody understands what the gospel is. The gospel is not, a few four books in the Bible, even though it is, but the gospel is the life of Jesus Christ. That's the difference. So when you say it's the gospel truth, it's like Mike is living the gospel truth. Well, then that means that the type of lifestyle he's living is very true. It's very real. And I think that that's very important, that we be real, that we, I set upon myself a mission, a journey back in 2018, 2019. Said, I only want to be one man. I don't want to be a different person when I go to work, a different person when I come with my kids, a different person when I go over there to church. I don't want to be known that way. So here's the deal. I'm going to learn. Y'all hear me? I'm going to learn, teach myself how to be free enough to express myself exactly how I am. No change, no difference. Only change is if there's something that I can do better to become a better man. But other than that, I'm not going to get into a circle and change how I act because I'm in that circle. And when I come back over here, change how I act. And who knows? I don't know if that's exactly what I was doing, but I wanted to make sure that the same man showed up every time. The same type of jokes I had every time. The same type of commitment I had every time. The same type of, tenacity or attitude I brought every time. So I started to define my character. And just like what Mike is saying, brothers out there, our character is going to be carried on many times, and manners need to be up there between reputation, character, and ideology, or family, or somewhere right in there, because many times there will be mannerisms that are passed on through generations. You don't even know it. Like, we lead this type of thing and we don't always know it. There's things that I do that are like my father, and I didn't even know it. I didn't even know it until I got a chance to meet the man. And when I got a chance to meet the man, I was like, oh, dog, yeah. Yeah, I do that. There's a certain walk. We all have this same walk. My brother has the same walk. My dad, myself, I can't even get rid of it. There's certain actions that I'll be doing right now on the screen. And sometimes I look up at the screen. I was like, oh, that's my dad right there. I did it. And, I don't mean anything bad about that, but it's just that I tell you what will happen. You will leave something behind, whether you like it or not. So make a choice. I think that we talked about this on the last show, about Martin Luther King Jr. and how I don't really believe that he planned to leave such a legacy. For him, it was just doing a deed. But now that we are very aware that we have the power to do this, why don't we choose to be the best legacy that we possibly could be, and to leave the greatest amount of wisdom, finance, ideology, tangible asset, to be the best human being that we possibly could be, and leave that. So I'm going to say this with just a couple of things. One, I want to leave financial literacy as well. The understanding of money, how money works and how it multiplies. I want to leave that. And I also want to leave the understanding of what freedom is, what liberty is, and the cost of pursuing it.
I think you just mentioned Martin Luther King, and we know what kind of legacy he left. We're still talking about him. The next generation will be talking about him, et cetera, et cetera. I'm of the thought process. I'm of the thought that this man was I don't know if he knew how huge it would be. I don't think anybody does. I don't think Jeff Bezos knew Amazon would be exactly what it was. But I definitely believe that they had the intentions. They were very intentional about doing it. And I think people who end up leaving long-standing legacies and traditions and these reputations, they get started a little bit earlier with being intentional about their living. A lot of us end up having like careless, childhoods, up into teenagers, and we kind of go along with the crowd because that's what we kind of see. But there's a guy, and I think Martin Luther King was one of them. Remember that this is a guy who graduated from college. I think, what was it, like at the age of 16 or 17?
I think it was.
Yeah, got his master's. He was one of the youngest to get his master's in Morehouse. This was a guy that was just intentional about his living, and we need to be very, very intentional about the way that we live. So and it doesn't matter whether you did it back then, whether you're starting now before you're 40 or after you hit the over the hill 40 like Joel is. You just you're intentional about the way that you're living your life. You understand? So, man, I love it.
He was 15.
He was 15. This is a guy. Can you imagine that fifth? And we had a couple at Suncoast though. I think we had like one guy, kids that would look. I mean, they look like kids in high school, but they, and I mean, he can't lead. He didn't do it by himself because he's a child. He had his mother and his father. His father was a fluent pastor, influential pastor where they grew up. So there was that guidance there again from having a great father and a great mother. Here's a little known fact. Did you know his mother was murdered in the church? Yeah, after he passed, his mother was murdered in the church. I don't, that's just a thought process, anyways. But very influential people. All right, how? Right? How do you? And I'm doing Anna's job, and I apologize again on air. How do you plan to implement these traditions? I was doing some research. And I was looking at some of the top families, like families that have left legacies and traditions that span for years and generations. And of course, when we talk about, just the American families, we have the Clintons. That's a long-standing, huge, influential politicians. You got the Bushes who gave you 2 presidents. And I heard if you go down the line, like the Bushes are related to almost like every other president. So there's something there if you actually go down the line of it. From the Jamaicans, you got the Marleys. Bob Marley established a huge influence and tradition. His sons have continued it. I don't know if you ever checked out a lot of the licensing that they do for the Marley name. They have beverages, they have carnivals and festivals that they throw, etc. All their kids are influential within the music section. I mean, he has kids from different or with different mothers that are huge within, and they've all managed to stick together, even though they didn't necessarily grow up with the same mother. They all managed to stick together. So you got the Marleys. America, we go back to America, is the Waltons. If you see what Sam Walton did with his family, who remain on the top richest Americans each and every year. There's like 6 or 7 of them on the Forbes list. And then you have people like the Rothschilds. And when you look at the Rothschilds, that's a banking family. This is established back in like the 1760s. The guy who started those legacies and that tradition, and then he sent his 5 sons out to the 5 different cities to establish banking, the different, to be in charge of these different banking systems. People, if you have a chance ever, look up the Rothschilds. Huge influence over the banking systems, and now and it continues to go on now. He had such stringent things, because one of the things it takes is a lot of discipline. You got to establish a lot of discipline in the beginning of these traditions, and he has it to where like it's almost, you couldn't marry certain people. You know, like if you marry, almost he was establishing, because it used to be like the royalty used to pass down traditions. Those were the people who were known. You pass down, you were going through royalty, and he kind of established it the same way as royalties established it. And if you married outside of the stipulations that he's given, you're out of the family. Because what we know is that the first generation makes it, the second generation spends it, and the third generation ends up broke. And he must have known that. And so he said, in order for this not to happen, we need to enact certain stipulations, certain standards, certain rules, certain guidelines. And this all has to take place in order to establish a long-lasting legacy. Here are some, I wrote down some of the things that you got to think about in regards to passing. How do you pass down legacy? Sharing stories of family history. We kind of discuss stories. It's important for a lot of you elders, however you get the ear of some of the younger people, and honestly, the earlier you do it, the better. You know, because after a while, especially if, you know, some young people aren't really trying to hear it after a while, especially if they don't see a certain type of success within you. They don't want to sit down there and pay attention, because when we're younger, we're saying if we don't see it, we're going to try to attempt to blaze our own trail. And so you want to start passing this down. That's why it's so strong for the mother to pass it down, and even more important for the fathers to start establishing and passing down these different stories. Who was your grandfather? Who was your great grandfather? Where did they come from? Especially within our community, where we kind of know you know, we were brought over here first off, so we lost a lot of our heritage. So we need to start passing these things down. Stories and songs are one way to do it, but try to really get into what's going on with your family without necessarily having to go to ancestry.com. I thought I saw a comment with Jeremy. I want to shout out Jeremy. He's talking about Maria Marley killed it. Shouts out to Jeremy out in South Carolina, one of the best realtors out there. Number 2, identify shared values. Start to identify these shared values, and there was something that Anna put in, and I love that story too in regards to the chicken baster, etc. But identify these shared values and find out the ones that serve you, because we have to remain flexible. Or we're going to have our main tenets of what we're passing down, but we have to do it with the times. Right. So and now things change more than ever. So identify some shared values within you and your family. OK. Number 3, allow people their voice. Right. Which means is that the elders, we can't just and I'm playing on both sides of the circle here. Elders, we can't just force things down the throat of our children. We have to allow the voice. And children, just don't ignore your elders. Okay, maybe we don't necessarily see success as we see it, especially in this generation where it's all flash on Instagram. If you don't have a Rolls Royce, you're not really living life. If you're not in Dubai twice a year, you're not living life. If you're not on the floor seat, you're not living life. 99% of us, 97% of us aren't doing that. And we probably shouldn't do it because it's not a good investment. It's just you. Who are you needing validation from? You know, the best people that you can gain validation from is your family, people that care for you and support you. Okay. And family doesn't necessarily have to mean blood, because I got a brother sitting on the other side of the screen, as you can see. Number 4, create a long-term vision and plan. Every week we bring up Habakkuk 2:2. That I'm telling the brother that we might just need to make that our Bible verse of the show. Write down your vision and make it plain so that the people can see it and run with it. Essentially, I'm paraphrasing. But that's essentially what it is. You have to create a long-term vision and plan. Some of our older folks, that way when people see it, they can say, okay, well, this is where we're headed. Because if you have no buy-in from the people around you, then it doesn't mean anything. It's going to, just like the Bible says, it's vanities, and to some extent is, but once you start including people and it goes through, and then they can see it, the younger people and allow the younger people also to contribute to it. Because the way that you thought about it 10, 20 years ago, just because these are the people that are going to be running with it, you have to allow it to be flexible enough. Keep your main tenets, but allow it to be flexible enough that they can take it and kind of make it their own as they go through it. Here's a good one. I don't know what am I on? 5?
5.
Formulate a succession plan. I'm in real estate. I've dealt with a lot of probate houses and probate, going through the probate process. You can't imagine and it was even worse. I was dealing with it even more when I was an investor. You can't imagine the amount of wealth that's lost because there's no succession plan. There's no will. There's no thought process about what happens when this strong pillar of the family passes away and everything is just left up in the air. Because even though people may be blood, they're not family. Some people, it is what it is. You accept them as such, but some people can't be allowed. We say, don't allow everybody in your game room.
I want to jump in on that part of the conversation. Is that all right?
Of course, brother.
Because that's a powerful statement right there. And I'm listening to these the different points that you're laying out, and I like that you're laying these things out. I feel as if sometimes between the elder and the youth, there's a loss in translation. So I agree with you when you were talking about be flexible with the vision plan, the succession plan, maybe the succession plan, because things do change, things do change. We're still not, we're no longer segregated. So there had to be an adjustment there. There had to be an adjustment there because we are no longer segregated. And I can walk down any street, essentially, and not have to worry about being clubbed because I'm a black man. I don't have to show a writ of paperwork that says I'm a free man in the South. I don't have to do that. I'm not saying that there aren't still things that are wrong that happen. I'm just saying I don't have to carry a sheet of paper that says I'm not a citizen and I'm less than a man. And so there had to have been a change, right? There had to have been something that changed. I feel like there was a great change in between the 60s and the 70s, a great change that came about, because sometimes when I look at the cultures of people in America, I think about that. And, sometimes I'll see the Asian culture and I'll be like, wow, they stick so well together. I'll look at the Russian culture in America and I'll be like, wow, they stick so well together. I'll look at I'll look at many other cultures and I'll be like, man, soon as somebody enters into the community, there's a cousin, there's an uncle, there's a friend of a cousin, there's a third cousin, there's a fourth uncle, there's a past, removed, half, whatever. That's like, listen, I own the Quickie Mart. Come over there and you'll sweep until you get on your feet. And I just love that. And I'm seeing a lot more of that in the Black culture, but there was a lot of washing of identity that was lost in the Black culture, and I feel as if between the elders and the young people, it seemed as if when that was lost, the elders didn't have enough, maybe they didn't change enough to give the new direction and how to live and walk in the new world. Or maybe the young people just had to take hold of the plow and just plow with all they could with what they saw ahead of them. Because now when we're living in the day-to-day, there's just doesn't appear that there's as much of this culture being passed down to the generations. Maybe father to son, maybe even grandfather to father to grandson, or to, to child to grandson. But I don't see a whole lot of the 80-year-old man passing down these stories to the 10-year-old and the 15-year-old. And I wonder, because as you're going through the stages and the steps on what should be done, I question, what should be happening now between...
Joe, real quick, because I think we're having, I don't know if it's just me or if the connection is going bad, but let me answer it while this internet connection, I don't know, Anna, just to give me a thumbs up. Let me know what's going on that side, if it's just me or if it's Joe's internet connection. Okay, perfect. And while Joe figures it out, one of the things that I'm glad he mentioned this, and I was going down this line, but I'll stop. I'll start with here in regards to giving a historic lesson, because he mentioned these different cultures, and then of course he started talking about our culture, or the Black culture, and we have to remember. Let's remember that we had 400 years of slavery. And it hasn't been that much longer, maybe 150 years. We're in 2021, 151 years since we were out of slavery. Then of course we had Jim Crow, etc. And actually we were pretty strong up until maybe 1950, etc. But we're still pretty new. When we start talking about the Asian culture, when we're talking about he mentioned the Russian culture. I'd like to also mention a lot of the Eastern cultures, etc. Traditionally, a lot of those the traditions and legacies and cultures have been passed down for hundreds and thousands of years. One of the examples I was going to bring up in regards to traditional families, and guys, if you really enjoy history and like I do, a great show to watch. Oh, is that Joe? Is he back? I think he's back. Give me a thumbs up, brother, just to make sure that it's a little bit more clear. Yeah, you're getting clear. Cool. Okay, he's back. Excellent. A great show to watch is Marco Polo. If you go back and watch Marco Polo and it gets to talking about Genghis Khan, and he talks. Did you ever see that show, brother? That on Netflix?
No, I didn't watch that, but I read some about Genghis Khan and Marco Polo.
Watch that show Marco Polo on Netflix that talks about Genghis Khan. A lot of the things that you spoke about in regards to the wives, and the different stories about the strong wives. Listen to his wife. Watch and see some of the things that she did in order to keep the legacy going. Look what they were talking about, the Sung dynasty that was a part of China for thousands of years. Like we're talking about. So when we start talking about these different cultures, they have the history that they trace back, and it still permeates through. Then you have these other different cultures from Europe, etc., and it permeates through. A lot of our history, because a lot of us don't really know where we come from, kind of starts from slavery. You can chase, you trace things back to, okay, yeah, well, my great grandfather was a slave in South Carolina, or one of these, Georgia or something like that, and that's it. So we're talking about our history only goes back 150 years. So now that's why it's so important for us now, and it's always been important for us, but to continue to establish these traditional legacies and these different, these different things that we're going to pass through, these different tenets, these different rules that we live by. A lot of other cultures, I was listening to some culture from the Middle East. They live for their family name. I remember listening to a young lady when she said, because of who my family is, I cannot walk outside the house looking a certain way. Because if I walk out the house looking a certain way, it will be a shame to my family's name.
Well, this is what I'm getting at right here, though, Mike. Because like when the elders drop down this certain information, sometimes there's a loss with the young people because they don't want to follow that, because that ain't the way of the time. but that is the way of developing legacy. In some cases, that is a way of developing legacy.
Well, remember, we spoke about at the beginning of the show. We spoke about, and you brought the Proverbs verse in regards to that lamp and the light. And in our culture, we don't have that structure of the lamp. The lamp isn't necessarily and it's been corrupted, so to speak. And the narrative isn't there. So now, when you bring up the point of now being the time, because I'm proactive, I'm moving in a certain direction, regardless of we have a lot of work to do. Right, there's a lot of work to be done within our community. There's a lot of work to be done in the form of encouragement to a lot of our men out here, to encourage them. And that's the next thing, brother, because I definitely believe that what a person would call the enemy, etc., wants us to stay quiet about what's going on in the community. They want you to stay quiet, and he wants you to stay isolated. Because as long as you stay quiet and you stay isolated, nobody actually hears what's going on. That's the reason why it's so much more important for a lot of men to get together and have that conversation about what's going on. Because we're still we emotionally have trauma. We emotionally have feelings. And we need to have these different conversations around a lot of strong men. Go ahead, brother. I see you wanting to.
I love it, because I'm in deep now with this thing that we're talking about. Because like when it comes down to tradition, think about this, Mike. Think about it. When you and I just mentioned the traditions that we feel as if it's something that was passed down, we came up with how we woke up in the morning of Christmas. Like, this is huge, because now we're talking about how are we going to pass on this legacy, and you're giving out this succession plan, with multiple things. And I agree with it. I love the whole succession plan. Part of what I'm doing is I'm going to share it and I'm going to show it. That's my 2 S's. It's kind of simple for me, because I'm going to share it by word of mouth with my children, and then I'm going to show it by the things that I do. But like this whole succession plan, it is huge, man, because really we're talking about setting up the types of rules, the types of commitments that will last years. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah. 1,000%. But this, and we'll get into it a lot deeper, brother, because I know we can talk on and on. We got a couple more points to go. My last point in regards to this section that we're going over, where are we at? How to implement it. The last thing is to align with other strong families. I think this. In the past, when you talk about a lot of these different cultures, you have, and we don't necessarily have to go down that path of arranged marriages. There was a reason why marriages were arranged and still are arranged in different parts of the country or different cultures, and these cultures are really strong. And I'm not saying that we need to go along the lines of an actually arranged marriage, but we do need to align ourselves with other strong families, other strong, essentially families, other strong families, in order to continue to pass down these legacies. Because it's one thing if you're doing it on your own, because you could. However, if you have more people around you that share the same morals, that share the same ethics, that are headed in the same direction, why not get together and go in that direction of it? If that makes sense, as we wait for the brother to come back on. So I just, that's perfect. It looks a lot better. So I don't know what you heard. The last one was aligning yourself with other strong families. We don't necessarily need to go down the path of arranged marriages like they did in the past. And actually, a lot of families still do it in the present. But there was a reason for these arranged marriages. It was to align other strong families to make it even stronger. So your parents will pick out the best mate to make the kingdom stronger. That was the thought process. How do we make this thing stronger? How do we make these families stronger? Well, while we don't necessarily need to have arranged marriages, maybe.
No, I mean, listen, I mean, I'm with you, brother. I mean, listen, I'm 100% with you because I'm very old school. And, some of the traditions that I have instilled in me, I didn't necessarily just get from my mother. I got them out of my Bible. So I look at things totally different. And sometimes my children, I hope you can hear me, but sometimes my children don't necessarily see it the same way because I'm talking about some ancient way of doing things that made families extremely successful, extremely wealthy, and able to feed nations. And it's like, well, how do you get there? I didn't have the opportunity to sit down at a table with a man that had 10, 15, 100, $500 million in his bank account, and he's just giving out. He's just like, son, let me tell you and your friend, how I did this. I don't have that, but I do have that when I go into my Bible. Because when I go into my Bible, I can find Abraham, I can find Isaac, I can find Jacob. And these men were powerhouses,
Yeah.
So some of the lessons that they are able to give in just their lifestyle, maybe I'm not going to do it exactly the way that they did it, but I definitely see the succession plan. And I agree with it.
Excellent. So I'm gonna let you get into your part. That's it, people. I'm gonna go. I went down and share stories of your family history, identified shared values, allow people their voice, create a long-term vision and plan, formulate a succession plan. Don't let everything that you built up go to waste, and don't leave it on the burden of that one child that's attempting to keep it all together. And the last but not least is align with other strong families. What Joel is doing, what Joel's family is doing might not necessarily be what my family is doing, but my family should be able to reach out to Joel's family and if they need something, and vice versa, or come together, and Jonah and Elijah should be able to have that conversation because they knew what kind of people their dad was. So now they know that it's already there. And what happens is it just ends up making everything stronger. Awesome. So go ahead, brother. What do we get into? How to get your family involved with the new tradition? I love it.
Yeah, man, I'm following along with you. I was enjoying that just as much as I hope everybody else, stimulating my mind. I mean, I don't know. People out there maybe they don't know this is how we used to do it, and sometimes there will be one man that would speak more in the conversation than the other one. And it was just because you get into that vein, man, you get blood. Here's me with my paramedic type of references. But if I got blood out of that vein, why would I pull the catheter out? Stay right there in that vein. And I think that you hit it off. I want to say that a modern word to what you just dropped would be network.
Yeah. Net worth equals net. You're right, 1,000%.
Yeah, I mean, you want to figure out who, because in this day and age, you don't have to much. You don't have to as much marry into it, but you can simply get into the networks, the surrounding, because people are giving the information away for free. So make the right friends.
We went into that a lot, and I go into that almost every Monday in regards to identifying the people that are aligned with your purpose and moving in that direction. It's so important to be around the right people and not people who are draining. Pay attention. And when people show you who they are, believe them. Believe them. When people show you who they are, believe them. I don't know how much more time do we have, Anna, because I know we got a couple more. We got a couple more to go through. I do want to get into, and I really wanted to hear the brother's ideal about getting your family involved, because that's one of the things that I have a strong D pause personality, really heavily, I'm, for a while thinking that it was the right way. And now, the platinum rule, treat people how they want to be treated. And so you treat people how they want to be treated. But I'm normally like, Anna dropped out too. I'm normally the person who's just like, at one point in time, it's my way or the highway. And if it's not my way, then it's the wrong way, So, and I eventually had to say, you know what? You can have those strong, there's nothing wrong with having that strong beliefs in things. But one thing I had to add, a caveat I had to add to it was be open to the fact that you may be wrong. So you need to be open, at least just be open to new ideas, and don't be afraid to try new ideas. And then when you have, I think last week you spoke about taking advice from your helpmeet or your wife or the women around you who have something, who contribute to the conversation. Like, it's good for you to listen, because sometimes you'll be digging yourself into a pit, and of course you being a man, you got to sleep in the bed, sleep in the bed that you made. You made the bed, you got to sleep in it. But you don't want to continue sleeping in a bed of rocks. You want to have a bed of rocks that you keep making for yourself, when all you have to do is pay attention and listen to the people around you. And so that's what I'm learning more and more, is that, listen, a lot of people can add on to the conversation. A lot of people have better and more efficient ways of doing things. How, brother? How? Because you're probably one of the best at actually listening to what it is that people are saying, and kind of guiding them in the direction from just that, and also and allowing, and when you give your instructions, or when you give your point of view, it's not cutting into a person's ego, so to speak. Because sometimes people just don't want to listen just for the sake of it being an ego thing. Like, I'm gonna prove this person wrong. You know what I mean? So explain to that about, and because that goes into the schism that you're talking about. You were talking about how did the old people, there's that gap between the old people and the younger people who aren't given the instruction correctly, or the younger people don't want to receive the information.
All right. So I'll give you three things, but I know that my connection is real weak, and I've already attempted to change it. So just give me a heads up if you start to lose me.
Okay, no problem.
I'm looking at myself, and it looks like I'm talking in slow motion. All right. So this is the three things that I would suggest. The first one is core beliefs. You need to define your core beliefs. You should define your family's core beliefs. Everybody should know those core beliefs. Joshua sat before the people, and they were all doing whatever they wanted to do. Moses ain't been dead but for a few years. And Joshua's up there, and he's talking to all the people, and he goes back to them and he says, listen, you guys are doing wrong. I'm going to tell you what's going to happen in the future. Y'all going to ask for a king. God's going to give you a king. The king's going to take all your daughters, and he's going to send all of your sons into the wars. They're like, okay, whatever. He said, but the reason why this is coming is because you want to go out there and you want to serve. You want to have a new belief system. You want to do something different. And that wasn't the way that we learned. That's not the way of your fathers. That's not the way of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. That's not the tradition. That's not our legacy. But you will end up eventually choosing something else. But let me just ask you this question. Today, choose you this day whom you will serve. So all in all, what I'm saying is that you need to know your core beliefs. We all should know our core beliefs. I'm not telling you that you have to believe what I believe, but you need to know what you believe. And once you know what you believe, that is the piece that you hold on to. That's the thing that you're going to share, and that you're going to promote, and that you need to teach from the youngest of age on up. Because there's going to be lots of things that you will not be able to change, and there will be changing in the times. you know. But remember, if you are the holder of the core belief of the family, then you also have to be wise enough to understand how that core belief needs to develop within the family. So you take on that when Mike, when you're talking about the structure, you got to understand, okay, if I am the structure and this is what holds up everything, the core belief lies within inside of me, then if there is something that I need to adjust, it's got to come out my mouth. Because if someone else comes and makes the adjustment and I don't know how to respond to that adjustment, or I buck against that adjustment and that adjustment is right, then the validity of what I believe in may be lost at that very moment. And that will damage the structure of your legacy. From that day forward, the legacy that you particularly were developing has now just shifted gears and has moved into somebody else's hands, because there is a schism between two different individuals who started off with the same legacy, but then they found something that wasn't right. So you got to stay on top of that. That's the first thing. Develop your core belief. Understand your core belief. Study your core belief. And you need to make sure that you find the core belief. And if your core belief is not right, don't stand on something that ain't right. Make the change. You do it yourself and alert everybody. And if you do something like that, they will adjust with you. All right. Okay. The next thing is liberty. I believe in that. You want to liberate your family, liberate their thought process, liberate their minds, because if you liberate your family, there will be greater benefits. So you have to give them the freedom to be able to develop themselves. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't pass on the core beliefs, because as long as that is on the inside of them, as they are developing their own skills, their own personality, their own characteristic, much of your characteristic will begin to roll over on them. But that gives them the freedom to become who they are. What will end up happening is, in the end, no matter how far away they go from you, they're going to come right back. Because the core belief is a part of their soul. It's a part of their blood. It's a part of the air that they breathe. But because you gave them the freedom, see, it's just like a bird. If an eagle were to house that bird up inside of that nest forever, the eagle would eventually have to move out and get another nest. Because you can't have two eagles inside that nest. Eventually, the bird, that baby eagle, has to grow and it's got to fly on its own. And if that mother eagle, that father eagle, developed the core belief strong enough within inside of them, that eagle will go somewhere else. It'll find a high place. It will build a nest that is strong. It will protect its young from any type of intruder. It will feed its young. It will develop its young. And then eventually the young will be able to take flight themselves and branch off. And the legacy is built. You got more eagles. So you have to liberate your young people, their minds. Don't let them get trapped in the fallacies of the world. Don't let them get sucked into all those different things. And the last one is, and this is, I'm speaking as the structure. You know what I mean, Mike?
Yeah.
As the structure, as the man, as far as the woman, then it's a different part you have to play. But as the man, and there's some of this in the woman as well. But as the man, you got to trust this process. You got to believe it's going to work. You got to believe it's going to work. You just can't give up halfway through because it doesn't look like it's working.
Let me tell you.
So those are the three things that I'm leaving for people as far as developing this tradition. Because as I said before, going backwards, it's like when I think about the traditions, I'm gonna tell you one other thing, and I think we mentioned this before. There was another thing that my mother left me that it's become like a legacy, because you just mentioned it earlier without referencing my mother. And I believe it's a part of your legacy as well. And that is that I work. Mike works. We got that from our mothers.
Yeah.
My mother did everything that was possible. God bless Cynthia Marie Jenkins. She did every single thing that was possible to get me out of the projects where I witnessed people getting stabbed outside of my window, where I witnessed police officers with their guns raised out chasing people around buildings right in front of me, where I witnessed atrocities. She did everything possible, including working 3 hours away from the house and saving up her money in order to get me out of that environment. My mother. That's what she did. And she showed me that with hard work and tenacity, you can achieve whatever you desire.
Yep.
So for somebody to say, I can't, that's a lie. Because my mother, when she was a child, she was in the projects. My mother she brought everybody out. She brought them all out. That's the powerhouse right there. Yep. Matriarch. That's the matriarchism right there. And in order for me to do something like that, I have to be that bold, that tenacious, that sacrificial. You want to leave a legacy, you better remember you're going to have to sacrifice something.
What is that, brother? I think that's what we're missing. And it stops here, because like I said, I know you, and I know how much you sacrifice, because we could easily be out here just living our own lives, living it the way that we want to live it. Just going about you did the Papa was a Rolling Stone. But that does not create legacy. What that does is create essentially what has already been happening within our communities, is just a free-for-all kids. Because guess what? I'm gonna tell you what, we're gonna find structure. Because human beings, and even if you look at a child, and I got my dog, I had to remind myself today as well, they're going to find structure. Even if they have to create it for themselves. And you don't want, and that's how you got all these unruly dogs and unruly kids, is because it's within the structure that they created for themselves. They're going to create the rules of what's right and wrong. Where they are getting these rules from, and what God knows right now, the environment, the internet, etc., or someone's going to give it to them. We create our structure, so we have to be so intentional about being around the right people, creating our structures around the right people, and then on top of that is the mindset that's created even amongst that. Women have done a great job raising men. Joel spoke on it, and I definitely speak on it. If you all hear the story about my mother and what she did, if I sat you down and explained to you where this lady came from without an 8th grade education, went out and brought her brother up, then came to America, came down here to Florida and did what it is that she had to do in order to raise 4 kids by herself. It's amazing, right? It's amazing. And we create these, and they create these, they create good men. Me and Joel are good men. And then becoming great men. Brothers, what they're missing with the fathers is that when the father is in the life, the fathers make powerful men. And that's kind of what we're missing in society, because we're kind of scared to be our all-powerful selves when we're walking around. And I'm not saying you're just walking around bullying people and being highly emotional. I'm talking about when you walk into the room, you change the temperature.
Yeah.
That's a powerful
change.
Yeah, that's a powerful man. When you walk into the room and the language changes. When you walk into the room and the ideals change. Just from you walking into the room, because you being a powerful man, that kind of stuff precedes you. And a lot of our lives, especially being raised in a matriarchal society, and I got a lot to say about that, but what I'm going to leave it with is that being raised in a matriarchal society, what we start to see, especially in our community, is that the women's voices tend to overpower the men in our community. It just is what it is. It's just how it was built. It's important for us to be in our children's lives, for our men to raise powerful, God-fearing, humble, because you could be powerful and humble men that walk in and we change the landscape. When you walk into your house, you get respected as such. That's why you need to be in more of your child's life, because maybe you didn't have it. So maybe you don't have that. I mean, it's in you. You're right. But the way that you were raised is not necessarily showing as such. But I'm going to tell you what, brother, just because it's not necessarily in you, your children are watching. And because you're watching, it changes the way that they think about things. There's nothing that Elijah feels, for the most part, that he can't do. Or is pretty much outside of his reach. So because I'm here. He said the other day when I asked him a question about how he was talking about me and Beethoven, because I think Beethoven was around. He was asked a question. He said, "You know how you guys walk in the room and you guys act like you own everything." I said, "I don't know how that. I don't know what that is, but that's just the way we walk. You know, that's just the way we walk in the room, like we own everything." And when he said that, now I'm talking to the brother on the other side of the screen, Brother Joe. When Brother Joe walks in the room, his smile is gonna be just infectious. And I noticed that from the beginning. And if you all caught the story of when we were talking about how some of the things I'm taking into 2021 with me, one of the things was taken into me was the brother reminded me to smile. And I can never forget. That's how it was for him. When the brother walks in the room, that smile is so inviting and so infectious. It changes the atmosphere of the room. And now you get that infection, that positive, and you're enthusiastic. This is what happens when you're around powerful men, and we're creating powerful men. And brothers, you have to be in the lives of your children in order for them to be powerful. Do not move to wherever it is that you need to move to because you need to get out of here. When you take on a child and that child is yours, you now have a responsibility. You now have to sacrifice for that child. Part of that is not necessarily sending $150 a month or whatever it is that the court tells you need to send. Part of that responsibility of taking the time out to actually make it happen. Because guess what? You made your bed. So you can have a pity party every now and then. You can call me. You got 3 minutes to get something off your chest. I'll listen.
So will I.
Yeah, I'll listen. I'll give you 3 to 5 minutes. And then I'm going to say, well, brother, what part did you play in this?
That's right.
What part did you play in this? And then you got to eat it. Have your pity parties. I have a pity party all the time. 3:45 in the morning, 3:45 to 5 o'clock. I'm having, or not 5 o'clock, 3:45 to about 4:15. You might catch me in my pity party. And then guess what? It's time to put on your big boy pants, your big boy shirt, and your big boy clothes and get to work.
That's because he's waking up at 3:30, y'all.
Yeah.
If he woke up at 4:15, he wouldn't be having that party.
No. That's the reason I wake up at 3:30. Is because I need an extra 30 minutes to have my pity party. How did I get here, man? I love it, man.
No, I don't want to do that no more.
Get your pity party in, and now you say, okay, how am I going to change the day? We getting the wrap up.
Why am I up at 3:30?
Awesome, man. This was
Love
an
it, man.
awesome conversation, man. I hope you all caught some gems out of it. Man, I'm gonna tell you what, I've been checking out some of the stuff that Joe's been doing over on his YouTube channel, the Tenacity Foundation channel. They're cutting it up. I know some of the times we can be long-winded. But they're cutting it up. Go and check out those different channels. He's doing some excellent things. On Wednesday, he has the what's it called, brother?
It starts with me.
It starts with me. And I think and go check out my episode. I did talk about some things that I don't know, that I've never talked about before on publicly live like this. Yeah. And I talk a lot. I talk a lot. So go over there, go check that out. He has some excellent things. And of course, he has these episodes broken up. He even has some shorts on his different channels. So go check out the different shorts. Go check out the different channels. You see it up on the screen. Community. Oh, now this starts with me on Wednesdays. You got Community Beacon on Fridays at 6:30, and Monday you have motivational Mike Mondays at 9 p.m. So right now we got a Monday, we got a Wednesday, we got a Friday. You got something to listen to. We might, and as we continue, you're going to get a Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and possibly even a Sunday, because we're working that hard to bring this information and knowledge to you. You can't, man, there was a lady who had this thing, she had this quote. She was like, when the time comes, she said something like, when the time comes, you can't say we didn't try to give you the information, Jack. You know, it's like back in the 70s. So when the time comes, or no matter what's going on in your life, this information is out here and it's accessible. It's accessible. There's a lot of information, and we're doing it. Last but not least, I was invited to speak on the 30th. I'll be speaking at a high school. I'll see if I can get some video of that. I'm going to be talking to the young people there about real estate careers, what's going on in real estate. They get to ask me some questions. I'm excited about that, getting back into the community. Not getting back. I've never left. However, going back, and it's been a while since I went into a school and had a conversation with the young people. So, although I'm young too, I'm not old, but having a conversation in regards to that, man, I'm excited about it. Go ahead, brother. I know I done spoke a lot.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So on the 30th, you're going to be speaking, huh?
Yeah.
You know what your topic is?
Yeah, we'll be talking about real estate. They invited me to come and speak about real estate and getting into a real estate career. Let me look at the camera real quick. Just because you like houses, I know you like looking at houses. I totally understand it. And if you go on my Instagram, Michael Seville Real Estate, you'll see some beautiful houses here in Palm Beach County. Probably some of the best looking houses, some of the most expensive houses in the country. I just happened to call someone the other day. It was a third. I don't look at the screen, the money, because it kind of makes your thought process go different when I'm making my phone call. So I try not to look at the screen as much as possible. But sometimes you look at the address, because I have to look at the address, and I'll see Palm Beach, which is the island, Palm Beach proper, and then you look over at the side, and here's another thing. People ask me, what's the difference between people who live in these luxury houses and people who may not necessarily have these $37 million houses? Number one is they do answer their phone. So you will, when you do call a $37 million house, like I happened to do the other day, and having a conversation with someone, and then just happen to look over and say, this guy has a $37 million house. So that, so we get to look at these beautiful homes. I'm invited into some of those houses as well. One of the things about it is that's after looking at, I don't know, your 550th house, it's not about the houses anymore. It's definitely about the people. So you have to be here willing to serve and listen to people, because that's where it's going to be. So being a realtor is being in a real estate environment and servicing clients is definitely about being empathetic to people and what it is that they want to do with their property, and being overall a problem solver, because you're solving problems. The only reason why people move, because who the heck likes to move? I don't know. The only reason why people move is because there's some type of transition or problem happening, and you have to be ready to solve it. But before you can solve it, you have to listen.
Yeah.
You got to listen. So that's it. You check it. I said, go ahead, brother.
Beautiful. Listen, y'all, I'm going to be out there in Boca at the, I believe I think it's the Renaissance on the 23rd. It is the Echo Trail Trekker. So I'll be speaking there at 12:30 as a keynote speaker with about 4 other magnificent keynote speakers for this great program. We'll have a little booth set up out there. That's a Sunday. I normally don't do things like that on a Sunday, but it's going to be a beautiful day. So we'll be out there. And I hope to see some of you all out there. Come on and join us. Also, last Wednesday, Mike showed up on It Starts With Me. So he was the first guest. So you'll be able to look on the podcast as far as it goes, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. All of them are there. You'll see it, episode 2, Mike Seville. He dives in a little bit deeper about some of the stuff that, is going on. So with that being said, you all continue to follow us, like, subscribe, enjoy, send us comments, DM us, email us, let us know if you want to hear another subject. We're definitely appreciative of all of the support that we get. All right. Have a good one. Peace.
We love you guys. Peace.
Community